Thank you for having me this morning, and welcome to the 2019 Good Oil Conference. Triangle Energy is focused on the Perth Basin and is a producer, explorer and a developer of oil to be processed through its facilities just out of Dongra. The company has 312 million shares on issue, which as of today is actually now 350 million. We've just done a placement to issue another 48 million shares. We have a market capitalisation of 27 million, might be just a little bit more to be closer to 30. We have attributable cash flow or revenue to our 78% share of Cliff Head of $21.5 million a year based on 811 barrels of oil production a day. Current cash as reported in the June quarterly was 2.4 million. That's now sitting at around 4.2. And we have an investment in another ASX listed company, State Gas, which our equity position in that is worth $28 to $30 million as well. Our production's been stable now for 3 of the last quarters at around 800 barrels a day. We do have a workover of one of our pumps in October next month, which will bring our 5 producing wells back up to 1,000 barrels a day. Our board consists of a combination of financial background and operations experience. Tim Monckton, our chairman, is based in Sydney at Baillieu Holst Stockbrokers. Myself and Darren Bromley have been with Triangle since we sold the Pasay gas field in Indonesia. Ted Farrell was our chairman at that point as well. And we have Jason Peacock and Waylid Wong, who both work for Tamarind Resources. Jason is the New Zealand manager for the Tui oil field, and Waylid is the CEO. It is nice to see a lot of activity currently in the Perth Basin, and it certainly helps in terms of progressing and developing other assets in terms of obviously having access to drilling rigs and infrastructure. Since 2015, when we started, 2016, when we initially bought 57.5% of the Cliff Head oil field, we've then continued to acquire a further interest to take our position to 78%. In September 2017, through a joint venture agreement, we drilled the Xanadu 1 well, which again is approximately 20 kilometres south of our Arrowsmith processing facility. In October 2017, we also IPO'd a Queensland gas asset, Reeds Dome, which ended up with us having our at the time 35% equity interest, which has now been slightly diluted through a recent capital raising to 33%. I've mentioned the board. In mid-2018, Triangle Energy took operatorship on its own right, which is a big achievement for a company of our size. And at the same time, we also increased our interest in Xanadu through the acquisition of another 15% in the joint venture. And with further expanding our footprint in the Perth Basin over the last 3 years, we entered into a farming agreement for the Mount Horner onshore oil field. More recently, we've just completed at Xanadu a 3D seismic program, which we'd expect to have some outputs in the next 2 months. And really where our next stage is that we've come back to the beginning again to redefine and prove up more reserves within the Cliff Head oil field. And 2 weeks ago, we announced 2C contingent resource of 3.7 million barrels at Cliff Head. We've been fairly busy. This slide will just give you a bit of a map of the proximity of what we have and where we are. You'll see here, there's the Cliff Head oil field, which is 12 kilometres offshore from Dongra and Port Denison. The Arrowsmith facility is just in here. And then we've got the Xanadu oil discovery to the south, about 20 kilometres. And Mount Horner's up the top here onshore. It's all within where all of the Perth Basin participants are currently operating, and it's nice to have the infrastructure that we have at Arrowsmith. So the Cliff Head Renewal Project, which started approximately 12 months ago, which was really to restart the subsurface work at Cliff Head. You'll see we've got 3 key opportunities now that will take us through to the next 3 years. First of all, we'll do this CH11 workover, which is one of our water injection wells that will convert to a producer. It'll be a $3 million program, with the intention and outcome being that we'll have an extra 500 barrels of oil immediately produced. We have the West High and South East Nose appraisal and development projects here and here, which have both recently come out with best estimate contingent resource of 1.4 million barrels each. This gives you an idea of why we're going back into Cliff Head. We've got a platform there. We have onshore processing capabilities at Arrowsmith. The facility's got the capability to produce up to 15,000 barrels of oil. We're in October, November, we'll be producing 1,000. The green lines are our existing 5 wells. The CH11 up here would be re-entered to convert to a producer, and then we'll have 2 extended reach development wells for both West High and South East Nose, and with horizontal wells. We're currently completing with a 6-month view to go to final investment decision on these projects. Also within the field, there was another oil discovery in the early 2000s, Mantell, which again, the proximity to Cliff Head is just here. The plan there is that we'll, over the next 3 years, as part of a wider basin program of seismic, hopefully we can form a combined effort to do and run seismic on Mantell. Here we have our resource summary at Cliff Head. On the right top corner, you'll see there that effectively we've got appraisal and development opportunities totaling 3.7 million barrels. We currently have 1.7 million barrels recoverable at 2P. So the effect of this to prove this up really does extend the life of particularly our facilities at Arrowsmith, which at the moment, we've got a life of field of 2025. I've just mentioned that there in the brown, you'll see that's our Cliff Head based production. So at 2025, which has been generally observed that, we've got a situation of what do we do next with the facility. The triangle model was to buy into a mature field. We took that risk on, but more importantly, we took the risk on these facilities. And the only way to reduce that risk on particularly Arrowsmith is to actually go and prove up more oil, and then you can extend that. So if we continue to final investment decision on our current 3 opportunities, that's going to push out this timeline to 2030. And upon that completion and that job done, that actually proves that this strategy has worked. It's not done by any means, but I think we've certainly over the last 3 years moved towards de-risking that through a fairly aggressive attitude towards drilling with the partners at Xanadu in particular. Now we've moved that into going back into Cliff Head, which is our main priority because that's the oil that we can get to processing and to market soonest. So Xanadu, as I mentioned, was drilled 2 years ago. We've recently completed 3D seismic and we're awaiting the processing of that. The plan would be there that upon the joint venture partners agreeing that we'll move to another appraisal well in the middle to end of next year. We'd also like to see if we can do some more seismic over the extended field. We've already identified that there are other leads to follow up on, and that's part of our next stage with Xanadu. State Gas, sometimes in this game, we try to manage your portfolio. Our decision was, with our focus on the Perth Basin, that we would, in the general market terms, spin out our gas asset. And it was more than just spinning out. The point of doing this was to have it based in Brisbane. Most of the funding came from Brisbane, and we were happy to take a direct equity position in this asset, given it was exploration, and take a non-joint venture, non-operating role. So State Gas has 80% of the Reeds Dome gas project. We own 47.8 million shares and are the largest shareholder. We successfully drilled the first deep well into the Reeds Dome beds last December, which as a result took the market capitalisation of State Gas in total to about 120 million. It's certainly down from that at the moment. However, we have recently, at State Gas, raised $5 million at 70 cents from a strategic investor, and have announced a program to start in 2 weeks to drill 2 more deep wells and 2 or maybe 3 production test wells. So in closing or wrapping up, I think we've certainly done a lot in 3 years. 2019 has been a very busy year in terms of setting the strategy for the next 3 years. We've set up now for growth back at Cliff Head. We've certainly progressed Xanadu with our joint venture partners to progress that. And we have the opportunities of drilling at South East Nose, West High, excuse me, and CH11. So that, in closing, is Triangle. I think the takeout of this is, which still confuses me. However, we've got an investment in State Gas worth 30 million, and we have a profitable production profile that spins out 100%, $4 to $6 million a year, and our market capitalisation is 28 million. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.